Here's 65 things you didn't know in Call of Duty Zombies. On Call of the Dead, there's a very weird death barrier near the lighthouse. On this staircase just next to the box, if you run and jump into the railing and are very unlucky, you will hit a death barrier and your game will end. We all know the SMR in Black Ops 2 is the worst weapon by far, but what if I told you upgrading this weapon actually nerfs the gun? When Pack-a-Punch, the SMR has a total ammo count of 390 in reserve. However, for some strange reason, when the gun is double Pack-a-Punch, this number becomes 210, nearly half of the original ammo count. On Infinite Warfare and Shaolin Shuffle, if you head over to Bomb Stoppers and look out this window, you can see 3 pictures of Infinity War developers on the wall. Now, while this is a cool Easter egg, there's actually more to this. If you hold a grenade, then jump, you can crawl inside of the window and get outside of the map. I'm honestly not sure if this was an accidental glitch or if this was left on purpose by one of the developers. In the Black Ops 1 version of Shangri-La, you can find these mosquitoes all across the map, and you've probably never paid much attention to them. But these mosquitoes are just very bad PNG images floating around. Back in the day, I feel like things like this weren't even noticeable. On the Frozen Dawn in World War II Zombies, you can jump off the map without any sorts of cheats or anything. Out of all COD zombie maps in the last 17 or so years, this is the only map that has this feature. In World at War, the M1A1 carbine had a small name change for zombies. In any other game mode, this gun is the M1A1 carbine, but for some reason when acquiring this gun in zombies, it's called the M1 carbine. However, in your inventory, the name is unchanged. You can only assume this was done to keep the name shorter for more text space, as any other reason doesn't make much sense. When Black Ops 3 first released, the death machine had an ammo counter of 999 bullets when you picked it up. Now, even if you shot the weapon until the power-up ran out, you wouldn't be able to get through all 999 bullets. I assume that's why this was removed in the first place. However, this still exists on the Xbox 360 and PS3 version of the game. In Advanced Warfare's first zombie map, Outbreak, if you keep this door in spawn closed, you can make probably a top 3 camping spot of all time on this map. This spot allows you to pack a punch, buy ammo, and even cleanse yourself from the mutants. All zombies come from one direction, and there's just no downside to this spot. On Black Ops 4 special rounds, enemies can drop other power-ups besides max ammos. This is very rare, and you're unlikely to ever see this happen. In Black Ops 1 on the Zombies map 5, if you don't activate power, you can stand on the corner of any of these 3 doors. This serves no use, as zombies will still kill you, and it only works if the power is off. Everybody knows the spawn room skip in the Black Ops 3 spawn room, where you jump on this truck then activate the door. But for whatever reason on the Xbox 360 version, this does not work. The truck was completely patched off, and you actually have to do a more complex method to even do this trick. On Die Rise, the Sliquifier was supposed to have an upgradable version, and it was actually in the works but got completely scrapped. You can still access this weapon by using commands on PC, and besides a name change that was given to the weapon, renaming it the Sliquifier, but this time with numbers, not much else was done. The goo would have lasted 2 times longer, however everything else is unknown, since either it got scrapped here or this is as much power as they wanted to give it. On Tetsubo no Shima, spiders actually have a secret use. If you bring a spider over to this box and bait his attack, you can run and jump on top of his head to bounce outside of the map. This allows you to grab the cog without having to ride the zip line, and this trick is pretty easy. Just make sure to run and jump on his head after he does an attack. In the World at War version of Derice, this wall is very strange. You see, if you no-clip into the wall, you'll hear a gate sound effect. Now, if you actually go into the wall, there's no gate here or anything that should be making this noise. Not to mention, every wall in this room makes this noise, and you'll never hear this without no-clip. Black Ops 3 on the PS3 and Xbox 360 are very buggy games, and a lot of glitches that worked on release still work on these consoles. One of them being this one next to the boxing gym. All you had to do was jump on top of the crate and then jump onto the door. Obviously, this meant you couldn't pack a punch, but it was still ridiculously easy. On Shangri-La, if you no-clip outside of the map behind the pyramid, you can find 4 black boxes. Now, normally I'd say these are teleporter boxes, however, I honestly don't know what these are for. These also exist in the Black Ops 3 version of Shang, so they must be used for something like the Easter egg. Dead Ops Arcade has way too much strange stuff and just random things that you could honestly make a whole video on. But for just one simple cool fact, if you no-clip outside of this area, you could find a bunch of turrets. Pretty useless. For some strange reason on Mob of the Dead, you can buy the door to CD Street from below. This really doesn't do much much for you, but you can also buy the door leading to Michigan Block from below too. Only on the PS3 and Xbox 360 version of Shadows of Evil, zombies will not spawn at this window. It's such a weird change because it's still there and it's obviously a zombie spawn, but they will just never spawn there. For all the World War II fans, here's an absolutely crazy exploit. By shooting your weapon then spamming the melee button while holding down the shoot trigger, you can destroy any zombie within seconds. I mean, you can knife probably 5 to 10 times a second with fast fingers. This trick even works with upgraded melee weapons like the Scythe and is probably the most broken exploit within the entire game. One of the craziest bugs still exists within Black Ops Zombies. If you're playing co-op and you buy a Bowie knife then go down, you can knife any other player to instantly kill them. This bug has ruined many friendships and is the reason you shouldn't revive randoms with a Bowie knife. In Black Ops 2, when holding the Ray Gun Mark II, you'll notice your player uses 2 hands to hold the gun, sort of like an SMG. Now, when you look at someone holding a Ray Gun Mark II from a different perspective, you'll see both hands are on the handle and the player holds it like a pistol. Specifically in Black Ops 3, if you go up to the corner of Quick Revive, then try to go prone, your game will start glitching out like this. This doesn't do anything, but it's very strange that this even happens. Way back in 2008, when World at War released, there was multiple pile-up glitches on Noctur on Toten. And if you're an OG, you may remember this grenade wall buy. Well, unfortunately, this was patched many years ago, but for some odd reason, if you do this glitch nowadays, zombies will get confused every time they make their way towards you. So technically, Trick didn't fully fix this glitch. What if I told you the box on Drak only has 5 weapons in it? You see, on the Xbox 360 version, the box on Drak is very weird. When you spin the box, you'll get a combination of a monkey bomb, trip mine, ray gun, and strangely enough, a KRM. Now, if you've played Black Ops 3, you know the KRM is not a box weapon, and this only applies to Drak on old gen. The cycle is also very strange as it only shows 5 different items and weapons, but you can pull any of the normal box guns on a roll. In the showers on Mob of the Dead, you've probably tried to prone under these bodies, or maybe you haven't. Well, either way, you can't crawl under the majority of them. But of course, this one specific body you can crawl under. No idea why, but yeah. Months ago on Ascension, I found that if you bump into this staircase, you'll hear a noise, almost like a perk machine. Now this makes 0 sense because there's nothing around it that should make a noise like this. And it's only this exact railing right here. The one on the opposite side does not make this noise. And after spending way too much time no clipping through walls and just trying to figure this out, I gave up because it was probably just a mistake from a developer. If you've ever played BO1 Noct and bought the scoped car, you've probably noticed that when the gun rechambers, there's no sound effect. Now in the World at War version, the sound effect does exist, and it's very strange because out of all weapons, snipers and marksmen rifles have the best sounds, so you'd think this wouldn't be something that was forgotten. The day Black Ops 6 released, I figured out that you could skip the perk animation in multiple ways. Somehow to this day it still works, which isn't very surprising since all other old COD zombie titles have perk skip exploits as well, but this can be done by just dolphin diving into a perk, knifing the perk, or even doing an emote then buying the perk will skip the animation. If you have ever played the Darkest Shore, which I'm assuming you have not, when you spawn in, around 24 to 26 zombies will spawn before round 1 even starts. Each zombie will give you 10 points per kill, and this is since you're supposed to use the MG turret to take them all out. Well anyways, if you run to one side of the map with all 26 zombies, then run to the complete opposite side of the map and stand in this corner, all zombies will despawn and round 1 will start. Now this round 1 will have your normal 6 zombies and an additional 26 zombies, allowing you to get over 5,000 points on round 1. If you've been around for a long time, you may remember the Apothicon Servant being upgradable on Shadows of Evil. Well, this still exists in the Xbox 360 and PS3 version of the game. Now, the original method was patched a long time ago, but using the Inferal Enhancement Gobblegum, you can get the upgraded Apothicon Servant for 60 seconds, and it works just how it used to with the increased ammo count and red portals. On 5, the Pentagon Thief can completely crash your game. To do this, you first need to be on DEFCON 4, and when the thief spawns, enter DEFCON 5 and put both of your guns in the pack-a-punch, but don't pick them up. When Yuri grabs you, your game will instantly crash, and this isn't something you'd probably ever experience in a normal run. Just outside of the spawn room on Shadows of Evil, you can find this area that's otherwise not visible from inside of the map. This area seems like it may have been in question to be used for the main map, as there is some props out here, and there also seems to be a proper layout for the this area. In Black Ops 4 on Alpha Omega, you can use Ragnaroks to slam back into the spawn room that's otherwise inaccessible. In Shinonuma on Black Ops 1, if you head over to the storage area, you can stand on the side of this hut and there's actually a lot of space here. Now zombies can hit you and this really doesn't do much at all. On Transit, you probably hate the jet gun for many reasons, but here's one little trick that might make it a bit better. If you buy claymores and instead of putting the jet gun away by swapping weapons, you can pull out your claymores to make this much faster. This also works for pulling the jet gun out and the difference is pretty noticeable. Something that can absolutely grief public matches is the frozen box trick, and this trick works on Black Ops 1, 2, and 3. It's done a little differently depending on the game, but here's how to do it. On Black Ops 1, hit the box then pick up a death machine. When the gun shows up, spam interact till it goes away, and if done correctly, the box will freeze until you decide to pick the weapon up. On Black Ops 2, you'll want to do the same exact thing, except this time instead of holding a death machine, just hold a claymore. And again, for Black Ops 3, this works the exact same, except you're going to use your specialist instead. This trick also works on fire sales, allowing you to have multiple boxes with guns in them for however long you'd like. Just like every other Call of Duty, Advanced Warfare also has a fast melee trick. Now this trick is a bit more complex, and if you master it, you can really use this to your advantage. To do this, melee, pull out a grenade, then melee. This will cancel the animation and do a very fast knife that once you perfect will look a little something like this. Another thing exclusive to the older generation of Black Ops 3 zombies was this ray gun special camo. Now on this version of the game, there's a few different unique camos, with the most noticeable being the gold ray gun, which unfortunately I just wasn't lucky enough to get. Not really sure why this was ever added, but yeah, it exists. Back on the Frozen Dawn in World War II Zombies, if you stand in this area, all zombies will spawn from 4 different spawn points that are basically where you are standing. This makes rounds go by extremely fast, and if you combine this with the scythe and fast melee trick that I showed earlier, you can make some insane rounds. Back when Black Ops 6 first released on the map Terminus, the ammo box in the seaside path was actually in a different location. About 3 weeks into Black Ops 6, Treyarch released a patch that for some reason moved the ammo box on top of this hill. And even now, if you go to where this ammo box used to be, you can see that they obviously had this spot set up for something to be placed here. Something a lot of people may know by now is the AK-47 was originally intended for zombies. This is pretty common knowledge at this point, but this gun was quickly scrapped. However, on PC, you can still access this weapon using commands. This gun was unfinished with no sounds and does the same amount of damage as a 1911. However, there is a pack-a-punch variant in the files named the Red Mist, said to have a flamethrower attachment, but it's unfinished. On Transit or Town, if you no-clip outside of the map near the bowling alley, you can find a fence just sitting here under the map. If you have ever played last gen BO3, you probably thought Treyarch developed the game. Well, no, a company called Beenox was actually the developer for the Xbox 360 and PS3 ports of Black Ops 3. Beenox isn't just some random company. If you're unfamiliar, they've worked on plenty of games, including Skylanders, Guitar Hero, Crash Bandicoot, and even some Spider-Man games. In both the World at War and Black Ops 1 version of Verrückt, you can revive your teammate through this wall from a completely different room. You can also kill zombies, throw grenades, and pick up drops from this spot. Going back to the launch of Black Ops 6 Zombies, Treyarch used a different sound effect for the C4 explosion when buying a debris. On launch, this was the same exact sound effect that was used in Cold War. However, a few weeks later, they decided to change it to what it is now. I'm still curious as to why they made these changes, and if you know, let me know down below. On Black Ops 4 and Ancient Evil, you can have complete God mode with probably the easiest exploit ever. If you let a zombie down you next to Pegasus and interact with Pegasus at the same time as you go down, you can skip the cutscene and you will have full-on God mode. This is probably top 3 most broken glitches of all time, and if you want to pack a punch, make sure to bring anywhere but here. If you have ever played Black Ops Zombies Mobile, you'd remember this icon right here. Well, on Kino der Toten, if you no-clip to the teleporter, you can see this symbol. You can also see this if you no-clip to the rocket, and for whatever reason, this only shows when you jump, and you have to no-clip and keep the power off. The first month of Cold War Zombies was an absolute pain for camo grinders. If you weren't there, or you just don't remember, let me explain how bad doing the M79 grenade launcher was. As you can see, to unlock this specific camo, you need to get 5 kills with a single shot 50 times. Now on launch, this wasn't 50. No, this was 750, and this was completely intentional. This was only changed due to the community complaining so much about it that Treyarch actually listened. The worst part about this challenge was how weak the gun was. The only real way to complete this challenge was using Ring of Fire and hoping you got an insta-kill. And to give you an example of how bad this actually was, I have over 12,000 kills alone with the M79 on Cold War, and I only ever touched this weapon to unlock dark matter. The server room in Classified actually existed in Black Ops 1. If you look outside this window, you can see this room in BO1, which is where Treyarch got the inspiration of the server room for Classified. They did this with other maps too, however, I feel like this one is lesser known. On Call of the Dead, the amount of damage you do to George with a ray gun actually depends on the round you are on. For example, if you try to kill George on, let's say, round 1 with a pack-a-punch ray gun, this will take over 280 shots from a ray gun. However, just for testing purposes, if you did this on a higher round, for example 101, it would take around 65 bullets to kill George. On Transit, if you stand in the middle of the broken bridge, no denizens will spawn. This happens because for some reason, Treyarch decided to consider this area a no fog area. Back to Dead Ops Arcade, if you no-clip out of the map, you'll notice that all of the levels are actually right next to each other. This isn't the strangest thing, however, since on some levels, they're just random assets laying about, like this character that's from the campaign. On the release of Black Ops Zombies, Treyarch heavily considered adding the MP40 into 5. The gun can still be found in the files and of course works just like normal. You can only assume Treyarch thought this gun didn't fit the map well, so decided to just scrap the weapon. Where this gets really weird is the fact that they also did this with Moon. The MP40 was cut from Moon, however this time you could actually pack-a-punch this weapon. I assume because this map was originally going to be Paris and was last second changed to Moon that they just got rid of the gun. Out in the fog in Transit, you can find this one lonely tree next to some rocks. For some reason, this tree has no hitbox and you can stand inside of it. Only on the PC version of 5, you can do the OG War Room table glitch very easily. If you have your frames set to 333, you can jump on this ledge at which you can then just jump on the table. In World at War, just like real life, you can go into debt. On Verrucht, if you have under 3,000 points and buy double tap, then buy the bouncing betties while your character is drinking the perk, you will go into debt and owe money. Luckily, you can easily fix your score by getting a few kills. The reason this happens is because in this game, your points aren't spent until after the perk bottle has been thrown away. With Black Ops 6 Season 5, the new Mr. Peaks field upgrade was added, and with this specific augment, Mr. Peaks can re-roll a teddy bear for you. This is a pretty cool feature as the box will completely reset and last for a few more hits. Anyone who's played Shadows of Evil has probably tried to jump onto this little roof and failed miserably. Now obviously the game pushes you off, but what if I told you on the old gen version of the game, you can just jump on top of this roof and sit here. On Mob of the Dead, if you head near the warden's office and face at this wall, you can throw grenades and even shoot through this wall. This was probably just a small oversight since they had to remove the collision for an Easter egg step. On Transit, after turning on the power, you can hit a strafe jump into this little room and get the jet gun part. Remember earlier when I talked about camo grinding in Cold War? Yeah, well, a similar situation happened with BO6 on launch. Both the GS45 and LR sniper rifle required 2,000 critical kills to unlock their respective camos. Now there's only one problem. Neither of these weapons could get critical kills when upgraded. This meant at launch we literally had to play the first 4 rounds getting headshot kills, then restart our game. After enough complaining from the community, Treyarch changed this to just getting 2,000 kills, which is much easier and less time consuming. On Garage Crovy, you can still receive the loose change from Mule Kick even though you can't prone in front of the perk. To do this, all you have to do is walk all the way into this corner, then prone and crawl towards the right. Just outside of town in Transit, if you ride the fence wall to the edge of the map, you'll notice a very strange invisible barrier. This barrier is huge, and there's also lines in the ground, which could be bad tile placement, or maybe that's how it's supposed to be, I'm not really sure. But in the corner of this barrier, you can get stuck, and you won't be able to get out of it. If you keep trying to prone and crawl forward, your game just starts freaking out, and your character becomes super buggy. And finally, for Black Ops 2 on any map with the AN94, when purchased, the magazine for the gun goes into the wall. It doesn't matter where you put the wall by or what map you're playing, this will always happen. And that's 65 things you probably didn't know in Call of Duty Zombies. Let me know down below how many you knew, and if you have any tricks or things people may not know, drop them in the comments below. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.